Right back here on the Seth Williams Show with Mike Jusulka, and we welcome in Erik Ferentinos, a longtime guitarist.
Hello, gentlemen. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
fine.
okay.
Welcome.
All right. Thank you very much for having me.
All right, so we're gonna start off real quick, man, because you're gonna drive Mike fucking crazy just by your background alone. Um,
Is he triggered?
he is. He is triggered by what you have in the background. It looks like a flat Earth, Mike. I'm just gonna say it. And
What, man? No. This
No.
is a round Earth. As you can see, it's round.
it is round. It's round
not-
but flat.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about with your misinformation.
Chris had to put you up to that somehow, some way.
Well, I'll tell you, he did tip me off that he was like, these guys are into conspiracies, and I
Little
think
bit.
one of them might even be into flat Earth. And I'm like, oh, a long lost flat Earth brother. So, I'm not sure which one of you guys it is that might.
I kind of believe a little bit that there is some evidence that might be accurate.
Sure.
Mike, on the other hand, might jump off a bridge by the end of the interview.
Well, we could talk about whatever you guys want. I was just trying to stir
no,
the pot
no.
a little bit.
I will tell you, my biggest frustration with conspiracy theories is the one that was right under everybody's nose is the one that nobody believes in. You know,
Mhm.
everybody still walks around thinking that Oswald acted alone. That,
Right.
it's like, but,
Or he was a CIA operative, like they
Right.
have actual documentation on him being an asset that was on the payroll. And he
Yeah.
was also, as far as I've researched, I believe he dated one of George Bush Sr.'s brothers, or excuse me, sisters.
Yeah. But here's the other thing, too. You don't even have to dig deep. Let's go back to 1960 through 63. How many normal Americans could get in and out of Russia and in and out of Cuba 3-4 times and denounce their citizenship and then get allowed to fly back to the States?
Cool.
Yeah, thank you. Now, I'll tell you something, just as an aside, and I'll get this over real quick. I want to pay
All right.
tribute. We lost Richard Belzer this past week. A damn good
saw
comic
that.
friend of mine. But he wrote an amazing book about the mathematical odds of all the people that were in Dealey Plaza on the 23rd, the untimely deaths that they all had. Go get Belzer's book, and it's a good read.
Yeah, absolutely. And rest in peace, Richard Belzer. Thank you so much for your comedy over the years, all your fantastic work on your television series, and what a career he's had. And not much was said. Surprisingly, I thought it would get much more coverage.
So did I, which is why I felt compelled to say something tonight on the show.
Right.
And for you to tee it up like that, it was meant to be, Rich.
I just, again, I think it falls under the died suddenly or unexpectedly. I realize he was old. A lot of people love to throw that out there right away. Well, they died because they're old. That's the only reason. And, there's only one way that you could discount whether this had anything to do with vaccinations, and that's if Richard Belzer was never vaccinated. But I can tell you, to work in Hollywood, that was one of the most stringent places where they were holding funky mandates and stuff. Everyone from the actors to the people, screwing light bulbs in on the set had to be vaccinated. So, he was not probably once, but 3, 4, 5 times probably. So when he croaks, you can't discount that easily.
Yeah,
he wasn't sick. It was unexpected. And there's so many people, a lot of actors, athletes going the same way. And somebody should examine his autopsy. I don't know.
Absolutely. Erik Ferentinos, longtime guitarist for Stephen Pearcy, band Rat. But speaking of this conspiracy stuff, when it goes to the vaccine, I don't know how much stuff we can talk about because we always get banned.
Sure. Fair enough.
But now they're coming out with that it did come from a lab in Wuhan. We all knew that from the beginning, but you were called a racist and everything else when you said that. Now they're saying that having natural immunity is better than getting 2 shots of the vaccine. And that's coming out. All this stuff is coming out now. Why the big cover up? Other than, do you think it's government control? What do you think was going on there?
It was definitely, when you look at the players involved, these are Rockefeller, Gates people. These are elites with a huge amount of finance. and influence. And when you look at Bill Gates and who his parents were, they helped form Planned Parenthood. So they're responsible for millions of abortions every year. These people seriously believe that it's their responsibility to dictate how many people get to live or die on this planet, and they have the old money to corrupt whoever they need to make it happen. And if they could make a bunch of money along the way, even better. And
Well,
this checks all the boxes. I mean, it's usually a multifaceted agenda.
and here's the thing with them, and this is why we have to get together and do something about it.
Mhm.
It's the control of natural resources. The earth has a finite amount of X, and I don't care what that X is. And
Sure.
the population grows geometrically. So
Right.
everybody that's invested and owns all that stuff wants it to last for a while. And my
Mhm.
theory has always been, it goes back to pre 9/11. The days of being able to walk around and do whatever you want and go wherever you want are gone.
Yeah,
Because little
agreed.
by little by little by little, we're all getting put in a giant Skinner box.
The
Already,
15-minute cities, are you kind of alluding to those,
that
Michael?
and just the fact that everybody ends up marrying. If you go to the ghettos of the world, I'm not talking race, I'm talking about living conditions and money. They marry somebody that lives 5 doors down, and the world just keeps getting bigger and bigger because that's everybody's world, which is why anybody who's been in radio or anybody who's traveled and been into music, and I've been a comic, if you have been allowed to see, you see the inequity between those of us that have been free and know what that's all about
Right.
and the way everybody else lives their life.
We're spoiled as Americans in a lot of ways. I think we've taken a lot for granted over the years, and most people aren't even aware of their constitutional rights or the Bill of Rights. They're just kind of take everything for granted. They've learned to disconnect their brains to simply trust the white coats, if
Yeah.
you will,
Yeah.
and the higher ups and the rocket scientists.
Yeah.
You know,
Man, it took us 5 minutes to get like really deep. I mean, it's kind of scary actually. We came on the show. I was just going to ask you about Stephen Pearcy and ask about Chris Aiken. Okay, so you work with Chris. You guys doing a show tonight or no?
We did our show Monday, and Chris was able to do an hour and a half. We were proud of him. Poor guy.
He's hurt.
Yeah.
You know, I think he may have said something about it, but I know he did have, it was a pinched nerve as we had suspected, like a serious one that was in a rotary area where there's not much you could do besides rest. He's made some change ups in his mouse and how high it's going to be, and anything he could do to mitigate that. He's been using his other hand.
Yeah, it feels like somebody else. Come on, Chris, use your left hand once in a while.
Yeah, we need to get him like a Stephen Hawking setup where he could just kind of blink the controls.
There you go.
So you do a show with Chris on Monday nights. That's right, and that's at 8:00. CMS Presents. Is that the name of that show?
Yep, Chris Aiken Presents.
Chris Aiken Presents. That's right. CMS.
If you ask Siri, it says Chris Aiken because she's so stupid she can't pronounce anything right. But it's intelligence, artificial intelligence.
How did you get hooked up with Chris?
Well, that would be through the Classic Metal Show, which they've had running for a little longer than I've been in the band, but we both go way back in that regard. I've been playing for Stephen Pearcy for 22 years, and the Classic Metal Show has been making fun of the Stephen Pearcy band since 1998, along with Neely. And they had first approached me like in the early 2000s and handed me a Classic Metal t-shirt, which, you know, at the time I was doing a lot of tour dates in the early 2000s with Steven, and I always had dirty clothes, and I was always happy to get a t-shirt from anybody. And I wore it. I'm seen wearing it on stage through there, but I really didn't make the connection of what it was. I mean, bands gave me shirts, you know, people give me shirts, but I had if you've ever seen the Classic Metal Show logo, it's just a big logo that Neely, I think, drew in high school or something. That was his dream. And but it's cool. It's taken on meaning, that iconic deal they have for their logo, and they've given their fans tons of laughs over the years and helped keep classic metal alive and well. And I think it was around maybe I don't know, late 2010s that they started making fun of us really bad, and I caught an episode of it on YouTube.
Wow.
And it was an episode called "The Sad State of Stephen Pearcy," and I was like, what the hell is this about? And then they proceed to just Chris and Neely just ripped us, for like, and I got so mad. I was like, who in the hell are these guys to, smear us online in this? And I actually was pretty upset about it. I was like, I'm going to kick these dudes' ass. They're going to be somewhere. And I'm going to get them. And little did I know, like, you can't judge a face by the voice, because when I did eventually befriend them and get to meet them, Chris is like 4 of me. He could easily kill me quite quickly. Neely is another guy. He's like Dog the Bounty Hunter.
Right.
Okay. So you don't want to F with either of these guys. They're both heavily armed. I would never stand a chance. So my only chance was to join them.
To do a show. Absolutely.
That was it.
I met Chris 20 years ago. He was doing metal show on WMMS, the radio station up here. And, we were friends back then. And then we kind of grew apart a little bit. I went my own way doing AM radio stuff. And then it took me losing a leg and trying to do this podcast to get me back in touch with him. And now, good friends again. So it's cool. How'd you meet Stephen Pearcy?
Well, that would go back to the 1980s. And it was serendipitous enough that he moved in across the street from my family in Carlsbad, California, in probably, 1987, I think, when Rat was at the peak of their career. And my mom's like, hey, do you know the band Rat? I was like, well, yeah. And she goes, well, don't say anything, but the singer just moved in across the street. My mom's from Jersey originally. That's why I'm talking about that. But anyways, I was just like, what? And I don't know if you guys had this in your neighborhoods growing up. Did you ever have like a neighborhood watch deal where they give everybody's phone numbers on the block?
Yes.
And names and stuff. So you would know who everybody was and be able to call if there was a problem. Well, for him, I remember he put that his name was Stephen Christ. I don't know why he did that. I just kind of flashed back to that. But he did have to be really on the down low because people would follow him around back then. I remember he drove a badass Porsche 935 turbo, and he would always be like outrunning fans. And on the radio, they'd be like, "We had a Stephen Pearcy sighting today in La Jolla," or something. And so it was kind of a big deal. It was like super exciting for me. And when I was already just learning to play guitar and totally hypnotized by MTV and Headbangers Ball and the rock radio stations out there, I was hooked on hard rock and heavy metal and Eddie Van Halen and George Lynch and everybody, Jakey Lee. I loved all the West Coast rock guitar players. I wanted to be like them. And so when he moved in, I just felt like that was fate telling me this is going to happen for you. Even though I really hardly was able to play, could not keep my guitar in tune, had never had a guitar lesson, I knew it was going to work out somehow. These are just these things that you know in your heart, and you just follow it.
There you go.
What the hell has happened to rock music? I mean, today I'm looking around. I mean, I did rock radio for 12 years. And granted, the earlier stuff was fantastic. I love the 80s music and that kind of stuff. But even the 90s I grew up with, and then the 2000s rock was pretty decent, some of it anyways. And now it seems like there's a lot of overseas rock, but here it's not as cool or as good as it was. I shouldn't say cool, not as good as it was.
Chris and I had touched on this too, and I was trying to get my point across to him that kind of music, that the awesome classic rock that we grew up on, that had a good amount of development and time in the studio to experiment, and they could, in a lot of cases, afford to pay some fantastic studio players to come in and play. Nowadays, if you cut all that out and just have a drum machine, a keyboard, and a singer, it's a lot less money. So, most people will allow themselves to be spoon-fed.
A lot less collaboration and camaraderie too.
Yeah, the collaboration probably goes more with the songwriters of pop music, because a lot of the songs of the summer writers usually entail like there'll be a boiler room that has about 15 producers trying to write this hit song all at the same time in this one building. And basically they will, if their song gets chosen, they will be a wealthy person. If it doesn't get chosen, they don't get anything, but they're all vying for this. And in some capacities they have, they team up to have this guy wrote this verse, this person wrote this verse, this person helped with the melody, this person programmed it all. And then they have the famous singer come in and they poop those out every day. But they're really easy to make, especially computer music like that. It's just with the loops and the crap to make like organic rock music that was actually performed by a human with the guitar is a lot more entailed. It takes a lot more soul. There's a lot of factors involved. But I was telling Chris that there is hope, because I believe kids of all races and cultures are getting fed up with how stripped down and stupid music has become. And they're seeing the guitar, and they're seeing that they're missing out on something really special and talented and fantastic. And these young people, I'm seeing it with the addition of YouTube. They're getting all these free guitar lessons. There's now musical instruments that are very affordable to learn how to play, because they get them from China or wherever, but you can get like, for less than $100, get your first electric guitar, free lessons. There's a lot more players out there. And Chris was saying that, don't I miss in movies that there's not rock anymore in this. And I've disagreed a little bit. And last night I saw a movie that even reinforced my thoughts. It was a movie called There's a Ghost in Our House.
I just saw a preview for that. Yeah.
Okay. On Netflix. And this was a movie that had a black family and it had a young black youth. He kind of looked like a young Chris Rock. Right. And this kid loves like classic rock. He is listening to The Who, or he's listening to whichever band, Creedence Clearwater Revival. And then at some point he starts playing guitar to lure the ghost out. And he's singing this awesome, like soulful version of this CCR song. Have you ever seen The Rain? And it sounded so beautiful and it was so cool. I go, and that's what we need to do. We need to integrate this stuff. We need to all get together, the cultures, keep the guitar alive, but change it up. I mean, there's always been soulful singers in rock, but I love the black voice and there needs to be more of it. I always loved Lenny Kravitz, Jimi Hendrix. Yeah. That's the stuff I grew up listening to. So it almost brought a tear of joy to see that in the movie last night. And I think we're going to see more of it.
I hope so, man, because we're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame capital here. I mean, we got, and I used to be able to go to club after club after club and see live bands, and national bands. There were good bands, and then even local bands. There was a rock scene around here that was actually very, very good, and you just don't see that anymore. You just don't, and it's sad because it's the kind of music that I like, kind of music I grew up with, and I want to see you guys come to town, and you don't even see. I don't see Stephen Pearcy and you coming to town anytime soon. I mean, that's kind of stuff we need here now.
You're in Ohio, Seth? Where are you?
Yeah, we're in Cleveland.
All right, you're in Cleveland.
Yeah,
we had an Ohio show, not in Cleveland, more towards Versailles, but I guess it just got canceled. I found out last night. I don't even know if the people know that yet, but I'm not sure if that's in the danger zone. If we're going to jump back into conspiracy town.
But I just get tired of seeing. Now they got all these festivals. It's one show with 500 bands that comes to Columbus, and I got to drive 2.5 hours to see a rock concert. And to me, that kind of gets old. I just want to get back to the local scene and back to the
what happened to Peabody's and all that?
That's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
Peabody's is a great place to see a show, and I loved it. But it's all gone.
It's gone. It's all gone.
Yep.
Well, that's if it's gone, that means that somebody that lives there has got an opportunity to bring it back. Who's it going to be?
Yeah, you were in Ohio, and you actually had a health scare in Ohio. You mind talking about that?
I suffered a heart attack about 7 months ago, right after our show.
Yeah. Where in Ohio was
Almost
that?
croaked.
I forgot where it was.
It was Pickerington.
Okay, that's Columbus area, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, it was outside of Columbus.
And everything
And
all right? You okay?
yeah, I think so. I don't know. I'm not scared of dying.
I am. When I was laying there with no leg on, I was thinking I'm going to die, and you had a heart attack. So God bless you. I'm glad you're still around.
Well, God bless you, man.
Last time I talked to you one other time.
You filled in for me.
I did. I filled in for you because you were out with Chris Angel and Stephen Pearcy. You guys were playing out there for one of his. What was it?
Flavor Flav.
Yeah, that's a great. Was it a crazy night? I didn't get to even ask.
Go ahead, Mike.
No, I'm just listening.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, that night was cool. It was Chris Angel does a annual birthday bash. He's in Vegas where Steven lives, and he was kind enough to have Steven and I as one of the many guests that performed that night. I think the highlight of that night for me was at the end they did an all-star jam, and Robin Zander was one of the guest singers. And they did the Cheap Trick song, Your Mama's All Right. Surrender.
Yeah.
And so I was up there with Kip Winger and some other dude on my mic, and there's all these people up there, but we're singing that song. The main backing band was incredible and played it, perfect. And that was a cool night for me, to say the least.
That's the one I want to ask you about. All right. You're a rock star. You've been a rock star for quite some time. I know that you got a girl now. That's fine. But I want to play guitar because I want the girls.
Right.
Is that a benefit? Is that a perk? Before you got together with the girl of your dreams that you're with now, it has to be like one of the greatest things of all time.
Oh, yeah. When you're young, you got to go out and smash as much as you can. That's what me and Pearcy say.
See, that's the kind of lifestyle that I want. I mean, I got a pretty good looking wife because I was in radio. She thought that I had money. Little did she know that people in radio don't make shit. Yeah. But so I'm happy about that. I'm good to go. But I always imagine life of being a rock star would just be like the best damn thing anybody could possibly do.
It helped a dork like me, man, because I wasn't cool at all. As a kid in school, I was smart, but I actually ended up getting kicked out of high school, and it was hard for me to acclimate to that whole scene. But I do remember thinking, guitar would be a great way to improve my odds. That's a part of it.
Stand-up comedy wasn't bad either. My claim to fame is I got to tour with Sam Kinison. I was a comic back in the day you were talking about. I mean, I remember seeing Van Halen at the Troubadour the weekend before they were going to play their high school prom.
Oh my goodness, that's awesome.
Yeah, so that was a hell of a show. But when the last few years I was touring with Sam, we used to do Wild Thing and some musical stuff, and whatever bands were in whatever town we were playing in, they were all friends of Sam's, and they'd come jam, and we'd end the show with music. And I can't tell you how many rock stars said, because this is what the envy of every comic as far as musicians go is, if you got a great song and you come out and there's 20, 30, 100,000 people in the stadium, you hit the first three chords of the song that everybody came to hear, and they're all standing up. You can't write a joke where you're going to get that kind of response halfway through the joke. It just will never happen for a comic. But I've had musicians in all kinds of that I've just was in awe of meeting that night come up and say after the show, I can't believe you guys go out there with just a microphone. Mm-hmm. If I was in front of 20,000 people and I didn't have my band and my guitar, I could never face 20,000 people. So
bingo, yeah.
Kind of, the yin and yang there was, but yeah, there is something to saying, do you want to go see the bus?
That's right. Well, that is so cool to hear. And, you mentioned Wild Thing. And of course, as the Steven and Rat fans know, Steven was in the video that they did for Wild Thing, as well as Billy Idol and a lot of cool Slash.
I'm in that video too.
Are you?
Yeah, watch it again sometime and look at the guy in the big green shirt.
Cool, man. I will watch it tonight. I saw Point Break last night. It happened to be on TV. And I said it to Susan. I'm like, now you got to wait. Rat plays the song at the very end.
Yeah.
And sure enough, Patrick Swayze gets let go to go surf his last wave into his death.
Right.
And then the credits roll and it plays Nobody Rides for Free. But then she busted my balls. She's like, oh, they didn't put it on till the credits, huh? Whatever. It's still in there.
What do you got going on now? You got any tour dates going on? What are you guys up to?
Yeah. Well, tomorrow night, we are going to be up in Los Angeles. We're playing the Canyon Club in Agora Hills.
Ooh.
So if anybody's in the LA area and you want to rat and roll, you want to lay it down, you want to go round and round, you want to be at the Canyon Club in Agora Hills. And then Friday, we'll be at one of the other Canyon Clubs, which is the one in Montclair, which is probably like an hour from there. You can go to both shows. That's what I recommend.
Are you out in San Diego? Is that where you're at?
Yes, sir. I live in Oceanside, California. If you know where Camp Pendleton is, I'm right there.
Yep.
Is the weather as good as they say it is out in San Diego?
Generally, it's phenomenal, but I don't know what's going on in the last couple of weeks. I'm actually concerned. Like they put like a tsunami sign they hammered out for. I live right on the beach. I'm very blessed.
Nice.
But I live on the Strand here by the harbor, and it's treacherous out there. Like literally the ocean right now is blowing sideways and the seagulls are just flying in place and the palm trees look like 3 Mile Island out there.
It's probably all that climate change shit we're going to talk about on Monday, right? The climate change what's happening out there.
Yeah, is that what you guys are talking about Monday?
Yeah, well, I don't believe in the climate change things,
right? Nor do I.
He's more on the side of there is climate change.
Sure.
But I'm not.
Well, there is, but people got to calm down and know that they've really only been measuring the Earth's temperature for sadly only 100 years, and there's plenty of evidence to show that there's been hotter times in history. These are cyclical events, but they will always be manipulated to control the people. And at the end of the day, please remember to tell everybody that this is all about taxation of the people. This will be an excuse for a carbon tax, and that's what this has always been about, and to limit your movements. The ultimate goal is to keep everyone in control and to keep them in 15-minute cities and be able to shut them down at any moment at the first sign of dissension.
We started to talk earlier. I said that 9/11, and then the second thing was COVID. The next big thing that will hit this country is when all of the computers crash for the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll come back on and you'll get a call from your bank that says, hey, Erik, don't worry. The $5,000 you had in your bank account is still there. And you'll go, thank you very much, hang up, and then think to yourself, wait a minute. I have $75,000 in that bank. And you call them back and they're going to look at you and say, prove it. Because you don't have a single piece of paper or something that wasn't on your phone or your computer to back up what you know.
It's been awesome, for our lifetimes to be able to have cash as an option to survive. But they've basically got us very accustomed to the convenience of the digital payment systems and things like that. It was like a honey trap, really, because now we're so used to doing it, and nobody wants to go to the bank to pull out a wad of cash to pay somebody. They just want to Venmo them. And now here we are a couple years later. They're like, okay, now we're handing it all over to the IRS. And we've been watching you the whole time.
I read 1984. It was supposed to be a struggle. Now it's like Satan shows up and you go, oh, you want to do me from behind? You stand there, I'll back up. That's how easy we've made it.
Speaking of that, it's funny because one of Bill Gates' patents that he has is patent 060606. So these people are absolutely worship Satan. There's no doubt about it.
Chris is actually watching the show now.
Well,
nice of you to join us, Chris.
When you have bullets.
That's right, baby.
There you go.
All right. So another question. You're living in San Diego, and I'm going to ask, what's the illegal situation like in San Diego? You're right on the border there, aren't you?
Oh, speaking of Latino Mexican people coming here.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, from what I understand, the our borders have been wide open, and there's been a massive influx of people. Again, I think that was intentional from the Democratic Party, just to give all those millions of people amnesty so they continue to vote Democrat. And it does ultimately hurt our country for people to enter that way, and it's more about nationalism. If you don't have allegiance to America, you're not going to choose what's best for this country. You won't give a damn.
Amen to that. Do you have a problem with that in San Diego, or is that is it?
There's a problem in California, because I'm like literally behind enemy lines here. Everyone here is insane, and I live in a horror movie.
There you go.
I've always said I'm waiting for that day when California just breaks off, but hopefully you jump off before it does.
I'll probably end up dying here, man. I'm not going to live forever, but I'm not leaving like some of the cowards that did.
What's your cat's name?
This cat right,
walking around.
Charlie Cat. This is a Turkish van named Charlie Cat. She's the sweetest girl. She's soft as a cotton ball. Amazing little soccer player. The stuff that she could do with a ping pong ball out in the living room is freaking amazing.
I saw the tail float around. I was like, cat.
I also have a very cranky tortie cat, if you know what those are. No. They're like a tabby cat, but they're more darker colored, and they can be very vicious. And these two kind of fight. But after 7 months of us all being together here at this place, they're finally starting to hang out together and not hiss as much. And that's welcomed.
All right. I'll let you go, and I don't want to keep it too long, but I do have to ask you before we leave, since Chris is listening. Is he a pain in the ass to work with?
No, not at all. He's, you know what? Chris is my big brother, man. I love him so much.
He's a good guy. I appreciate you coming on tonight. Anything else going on you want to talk about?
Not much. Just thank you for having me, and everybody subscribe to Chris Aiken Presents. Come check out Stephen Pearcy and myself, and Johnny Monaco, Scott Coogan, Matt Thorne. We're gonna be out there ratting and rolling.
Come on, get to Cleveland. We can come see you.
And I'll tell you what, after the computers crash, when everybody's up and running again, let's come have you back on and let's talk about that.
Anytime. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Erik. I appreciate it, man.
Thanks.
All right, Seth. Be well, my friend.
Talk to you soon, man. Thank you.
All right, bye.